All right, welcome back, everybody. Today's special Zoomcast guest is Jarrod Zurvas of Quark Expeditions. I've forgotten your role title. It's something like
Regional Director,
Regional
Asia
Director.
Pacific. Yeah.
And obviously, taking some time today to jump on and give us a bit of an update in what's happening in the world of Quark, and obviously, what's been happening in his world over the last few months, and share his story. So, Jarrod, there's a few people out there, no doubt, that have heard of you or know of you. But for those that don't, how about you give us a bit of your entry into the industry and how you turned up to Quark and where you are today?
Yeah. Thanks, and thanks for having me, Josh. As I said before, it's a great initiative to keep us all engaged during this time, which is very uncertain. But thanks for that. So a bit about me. I'll try to keep it as non-job interviewish as I can. So I started like a lot of people in the industry, cut my teeth at Flight Centre, more importantly, student flight. So it was a dagger in my heart this year when poor old student flights is no more. I spent a good 4 years there, and had the time of my life going through that program and Flight Centre and all that. I guess everyone wants to know, what inspired you to get into travel, and I'm not that old, but I always say the story as it goes back to when I was doing a project for school before internet and almost before computers. And the olden days, some kids wouldn't know, but when we had actually encyclopedias, and you'd go to the last one and then look up. And I did a project on the pyramids, and so that was my first ever trip overseas. So I still remember it vividly to this day. And driving from Cairo by taxi, and then you come up this hill, and then Khathu, the main pyramid, just starts rising out of nowhere, and it got me then. And since then, that was when I was 21 then, and after that it was a no-brainer. That was where I wanted to be, where I left, where I wanted to where I saw myself. I left for a couple of years and went and worked for Pepsi as a business development manager. That lasted 2 or 3 years, and then I found out, although it's good to sell, and there's that motivation of getting deals over the line. There's a big difference to selling sugary water versus beautiful trips to the Maldives, or intrepid trips in through Afghanistan or the Stans or whatever it may be. So I found the light, and then came back with had some time with Covermore, which was great, and P&O and Cunard, I was there for a while as well. And when this role came along with Quark Expeditions, it was a great step up in terms of seniority, looking after Asia Pacific, which was great. So big step up, great company, tips, and a real sustainable ethos, and as we go into it, a real sense of going beyond and exploring and pushing forward and being the first. It's a lot of things. So that's what got me to where I am and inspired me. And it's been a great ride. The last few months have been a bit bumpy. However, I still wake up every morning. This is where I want to be. So that's a story in a nutshell.
Speaking of those last few months being a bit bumpy, mate, how's the world of isolation and everything, restrictions and all the things that we've all been through over the last few months? How's that been for you personally? Yeah,
it's not a big, in terms of my own working environment. We have our head office over in Toronto, so working remotely is no real change for me. Sort of, I'm in a really good routine where I get up and do all those things. What's really changed is the lockdown, and I'm normally on a plane at least almost weekly. So I'm having withdrawal symptoms in regards to that, and not being out seeing agents and spreading the word and all that. It's been a bit tough. And then there's all sort of dealing with the not that negativity is not the right word, but refunds and cancellations and that. So that's been a bit tough in terms of the company and the team, and that we've been really, really lucky that we've been able to keep most of our headcount. So in Australia here, we've kept all of our headcount. In saying that, we've had to take 10 days leave without pay. But in the grand scheme of things, as you see on social media and LinkedIn, we're pretty lucky in that respect, as you see people who have been stood down because there's simply nothing happening out there, which is really sad, especially being in the industry for as long as I have. And I always say it's like high school. You know everybody, or you know of everyone, whether you see them at a buzz night or at a function or whatever it may be. So it's a sad time for the industry, but as always, we'll bounce back and get back to where we once were. So, yeah.
And obviously at the moment, as you said, dealing with cancellations, refunds, and a few other bits and pieces. But if most people are still, at work in some way, shape or form, and you're keeping that headcount in Australia, what's Quark been working on, through this period of time to get you guys ready for the other side, or for next year, or what's the current state of play in the world of Quark?
Yeah, and the beauty of a product like ours with two distinct seasons is that lead time in bookings is can be between 12 and 18 months. So just lately we're starting to see bookings come in for Arctic 21, Antarctica 21-22 season. So we're still processing some of that. There's still promotions out there for these future seasons, so we're working on that. We've developed a few different policies, just due to the industry demanding that. So people are, they're looking for flexibility these days. They're looking for because no one's sure sort of when it's going to bounce back. So we've been working on that. And, also task forces to to change with the industry. So things like changes to cruise ships, the sustainability on board, how it'll look on board in terms of how you'll eat. The buffets is a bone of contention at the moment. So how that will look, spacing on board. So that we've set up a task force to tackle that, which is interesting and exciting. So although the business isn't great, I'm still busy. I'm still feeling days. It's very easy. So yeah.
And for maybe a few agents out there or people watching that don't know all that much about Quark or aren't as versed as what they possibly could be, how about you give us a bit of that sort of elevator pitch, a couple of liners that kind of describes what Quark is and what it's all about. And then maybe I'd like to hear a little bit more about the sustainability side of Quark and the brand and what you guys, really, pride yourselves on and the purposeful side of the business as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'll give you a small elevator pitch. I'll turn it too salesy, but Quark Expeditions, we've been around for 30 years, so we're sort of pioneers in that element. What we pride ourselves on is the fact we only do Antarctica, we only do the Arctic, and when you specialise in unique places like that, what that does is it breeds excellence, it breeds expertise, it breeds integrity. When you go to those places, the other thing we sort of pride ourselves on is our staff, and whenever I'm pitching or whenever I'm out, I encourage people to go to independent review sites and look at our reviews, and you'll see a common thread, which is Quark staff, the Quark expedition leaders couldn't do enough for us. Their level of passion, exceeded. And that's something that we've prided ourselves on for a long time. I normally go into some of the staff on board, but a few people we've had on board, they were one of the historians on board was actually a prisoner of war on the Falkland Islands when they were invaded. He's been navigating those areas for 50 years. Alex McNeil, who now works in products, he's done close to 400 expeditions. And the other thing is, when you're only doing those areas, the Antarctic and the Arctic, there's no toughing out the Antarctic to get back to the Caribbean or to get back to the Med. These people on board, this is their passion. This is where they want to be. They're going from Antarctica, then they're going to the Arctic, and it takes a special person with a special passion to want to do that year in, year out. And when you speak to them on board and hear lectures, and, it exudes from their, the way they portray, the way they project. It's really inspiring, and yeah, that's probably in a nutshell of what we do. In terms of sustainability, I won't go into the nitty gritty of what we do and this and that, because I always like to say that, we were doing, we were focusing on sustainability before it was cool, before it was trendy. I feel like in the last 2 or 3 years, it's really came out and people say, well, we don't use straws and we're not using single-use plastic cups. We were doing that 10 years ago. We got rid of that. Some really cool things that we were doing is we support an initiative down in Antarctica called Penguin Watch. So if anyone's out there, if you type in Penguin Watch, if you've got some bored kids at home, you can actually go in and count the penguins and help the doctors and that aboard. And what that does is a little background on that is as temperatures are changing and the environment's changing, it helps those see which penguin species are actually thriving, which some are, and then some are actually going backwards. And that comes back to less food for X penguin that only eats this, and those who are not so thriving because there's less out there. And as another one I'll touch on quickly, which is on World Explorer, our vessel had its inaugural this November, and it'll go into Ultramarine, which is our new vessel, which will come Antarctica. 21's it's our MAG system, so it's called auto gasification system. So essentially, we can run our ship for about 2 weeks. We don't cause any essentially any not emissions isn't the right word, but any waste. And you can see it if you Google it or jump onto our page. About after 2 weeks, you'll get a handful of what we call it's like black powder, for instance, or coal, and it's like that. So they're 2 systems that we've implemented that we're really proud of, and probably it's pretty interesting for the public out there, as opposed to going through how many straws we haven't used and how many single-use plastics and all of that. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell, I guess.
And from a expedition cruising and small ship space that you guys obviously predominantly play in, or only play in, and even more specifically just those Antarctic and Arctic regions, how do you see the future of that space in the industry? How do you see the major things that we need to be focusing on, or the health security side of things, the sustainability side of things? That we've all been through this period of time where we're seeing dolphins back in the canals in Venice, and Himalayas becoming visible, and all these things that we're realizing that possibly our footprint of avid travelers and people that our hobby is to explore the world, what we're actually contributing whilst we do that. How do you see that expedition cruise, small ship cruising, and the sustainability side being a part of the recovery of the industry and what it looks like on the other side?
Yeah, sure. We get that. We get questions sort of similar to that, like in terms of sustainability and whether, I guess to go one further, whether we should be even in these areas. But I always quote, Attenborough, a legend or a personal hero, and he said, no one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they've never experienced. So, which in my opinion is 100% correct. Until you see something, or until you have a vested interest, or you don't have that passion, you don't care. It's not that you don't care, but you just don't have the interest. So I think it's imperative that people see these places and see them for all that they are and all their glory, without, if it's done in a sustainable way. we're founding members of IACO and IATO, which are the governing bodies for the Arctic and Antarctic. And if the guests out there have some time to go in and look at the stringent protocol behind and what we do in terms of the environmental and what's allowed in these areas, they'll see that they're well looked after. In terms of sort of moving forward after COVID, I think there'll be more of a push, and I think there'll be more of a push for smaller boutique expedition / vessels. What I think will struggle initially will be sort of the larger, 1,500 to 3,500, 5,000 vessels. They'll come back, I think, but it'll take a little bit longer. The other advantage we have is that it's easy to social distance in Antarctica or the Arctic. There's no one up there. And then we'll also see a push, which we're already seeing, is that, one thing that COVID's taught us is that nothing is certain. Things can be taken away from you pretty quickly, which we've seen now. And, I often see when I'm speaking to people within the industry, I hear this a lot. It's like, it's great. Went to a restaurant for the first time in a long time. And they say it with such, it's a real milestone. So, it just goes to show how much, society has shifted 3 months ago when we were all on planes. I was in Dubai and Bangkok, and now we're just so glad to be in a pub or in a restaurant. So, as that changes, in terms of the onboard experience, that's going to be a work in progress. And it'll be interesting to see, for instance, if all of a sudden, November, December, there's a vaccine that comes out, how will the market react? Will it, we've got a vaccine now, let's slowly get back to where we were, or will it change forever? But, in terms of economics and how those big ships work, and us as well, can we run at 50 or 60% occupancy on any of these ships? And what does that pricing model look like? For instance, the large ships will run at, they need to run at 100%, and then in some of them, just to be on board, they'll actually, they'll make most of their money on onboard spend, but if they don't have a full ship, it's not profitable. So how will that look moving forward is, that's going to be a battle for some of those. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, even if it's just sort of a bit of a break-even model, maybe just to start with, that you can sort of justify a certain number of guests that get you to that break-even point as opposed to profitability, even just to get moving and to test the waters, without the pun, obviously, but, just to see what that really looks like. So, and I guess I'm not the only one that probably sees expedition and small ship as an opportunity to get moving quicker. Because of the fact that you're almost already social distancing, you've already got a capacity of passenger to space, ratio on board anyway, which is great. And you're going to those destinations where there's no one else there, so you're not getting off the ship and hitting a port, with thousands of other people, and then walking into some busy city or whatever. So. Hopefully that gives you guys, that confidence to get moving and get moving quicker. We just need the borders open, I guess, for Aussies to be able to fly to where they leave from. Yeah,
100%, and quickly too. Because the airlines are struggling as well. They can ferry goods and stock around the world for a while, but they need to get the passengers back on board. So it'll be interesting next few months, I think.
Has Quark explored, possibly coming closer to home for departures? I know it's a longer journey from New Zealand and Tassie to head down, but is that something that you guys have, put on the table at all?
Yeah, we've done it before. We've had a vessel called Captain Klebnikov. It's a Russian diesel-powered icebreaker. So we've had that ex-New Zealand before. Logistically, it's a long trip. It's pretty rough, leaving from New Zealand or Hobart across the Ross Sea to Antarctica. It's a once-in-a-lifetime, though. It's funny you mentioned that. I was speaking with our our product manager today, asking him about that, and you know, what's there. And there is some really great stuff from Macquarie Island and a few other places. We haven't touched on it. We haven't thought about it, although the question's been raised with you know, with seasons, whether they'll go ahead, and you know, what are alternatives, like everybody's doing, you know, to try and stay afloat, no pun intended. But we haven't thought about it this season, but it's not to say we won't do it. We'll have Ultramarine, which will join this fleet next year. The capacity of that ship is just amazing. So it'll be able to do things like that, long trips like that, circumnavigate Antarctica. So that would be one which we would use. The other problem leaving from Australia is pretty small window. You can only really do it in January, unless you have a real icebreaker, and that's makes it a little bit more expensive. And icebreakers, the ones that are out there, they're not particularly overly comfortable. So for a long trip, it's hard to sort of hard to justify that, and there's also the cost as well. So, but you never know; it could happen.
Yeah, a few of my friends and people that I know that have headed down to Antarctica for work reasons out of Tassie haven't exactly explained that experience or that journey as being a luxury, comfortable, flat one. So
yeah.
I can imagine there's some challenges there, but you know, we're all adapting, we're all looking at alternatives, and you know, who knows, it could be something that is worth exploring.
It's definitely doable. There's a great, you may know him, Aaron Ross from Wild Earth Travel. Do it fairly regularly, I'm pretty sure, on one of their smaller ships. That's real. That ship, I forget the name of it, but that's True Expedition. I think it's about 40 odd people. It's an older ship, but he does it really well, and has a good following. It's definitely doable. It's just it's not for the average. It's not for the average person. You have to be ready for a real expedition.
I have to admit, I grabbed the seasickness tablet the other day when I did my little whale watching cruise off the coast of Surfers Paradise. You know, with a little bit of bumpiness. So I could only imagine what heading over the Ross Sea would look like. But
yeah,
we'll maybe put our hand up for it one day. Hey mate, a huge amount of info obviously today. Thank you. It's great, and we'll obviously drop a lot of those links to the, you know, what's happening in the world and the sustainability stuff and the new ships and all of those things for people out there. And even, I guess personally, mate, have you found any time to do anything new? Got any new hobbies or indoor plant collections or anything exciting that you've found over the last few weeks?
Yeah, I haven't done anything too crazy. It's really sad to admit, but I'm and it's my own fault. I'm terrible at Microsoft Excel. I hate it, and I've veered away from it my whole entire career. And since then, so I've done a course on Microsoft Excel. So I'll get one new skill out of this, and then I've got I've started CrossFit as well. So I'm one of those now who does that. So I am getting some grief from a couple of my friends. Well, thought, you know, if I'm not traveling and eating plain meals, and you know, not that I complain, and drinking beer and eat good steak, you know, out in exotic places of the world or other cities, I'm going to get fit and I'm going to get healthy. So those two, and that's going to do me. So yeah.
Nice work, mate. I spent about 5 years in the CrossFit cult. It's a fun place to be, mate. Don't let anyone tell you it's not. You know, they're just jealous.
Yeah, 100%.
And what about some advice for the agents out there? You know, you've been in the game for quite some time. You've obviously dealt with, you know, tons and tons of agents and met some really great ones. You know, what's your advice to them through this period of time and getting ready for the other side?
Yeah, good question. I always go back to because there's a lot of doom and gloom out, and will the industry recover, and you know, it'll never be the same, and all of that. But there's one consistent, you know, throughout all of that, is that, population's still there. People will get jobs back again. The desire to travel, the desire to explore will always be there. So, if you can survive, if you can get through, it will bounce back. It won't go anywhere. So just keep your head up, keep pushing forward, and it'll get back to where it was. Maybe not exactly where it was, but you'll be back. So that's what I would say. It'll still be there. There'll still be inquiry. There'll still be people ready to book. It's just we just have to tough these next few months out, and it'll be back to where it was. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, it's good advice, and we know that as you said, the population will be there. People will eventually will have some disposable income, and they'll want to spend it on travel because we're Aussies, and that's what we do. As far as agents are concerned, it's about making sure that those people that do want to travel and do want to explore the world, are seeking the advice of some expert agents out there that are well versed in the product and the health security or whatever's the most important thing at the time. I think it's it's just writing it out till you get to that point where we start seeing some decent inquiry coming through, which is starting to trickle through from what I'm hearing out there at the moment, and people are starting to plan for the future. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. We just got to hang on for a little bit longer to make sure that we're there ready to go when it is ready to kick off and these borders open. Yeah. But before we let you go, is there anything else that you can think of that that we didn't touch on, or anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I guess we didn't touch on on some of our policies that we brought on. I did want to touch on that actually. We for the agents out there, and that we have brought out a policy which is a lifetime rebook guarantee. So you can book with confidence. You can cancel up to 48 hours prior to departure. So if you're getting those hesitations, I'd love to do it, but I'm just not sure where the world is at the moment or where it will be. You can book it. You can book with peace of mind. If you can't go 48 hours prior, you can cancel. So that's great. And the other great thing specifically for the agents is that a lot of the agents out there, they don't get sort of commission until prior to departure or final payment. So we're actually paying commission on deposits. So for those agencies out there who, obviously we all need money right now, you'll get paid some of the commission instantly, which a cash injection right now into the business or wherever that may be. I think that's going to be a real godsend. And we introduced that on the back of feedback from agents and agencies themselves, was that, what's stopping people from booking now? Uncertainty in the market, and hence the reason for that. And also, how can we help agents right now? And that was why the instant commission, which is contact me if you want more details, or jump on our website. I don't want to go into it now, but that was probably two things that I wanted to bring up, which I think are important. So yeah. Wow,
that's amazing, and such a generous thing to be doing with agents, and obviously there's probably some stuff to figure out how that works for them, and but that's really cool, and hopefully we see a little bit more of that across the industry, because as you said, a cash injection to some of these agents out there that really need it, to be able to survive, even if it is a little bit of what is to come eventually. I think that's a huge help. So, well done to Quark for such a great initiative.
Thanks.
And before we let you go completely, mates, is there anyone else out there that you can think of that we would get some value out of and would like to share their story on the group?
Yeah. I was thinking about that. I think a good one might be Michael Stein from Covermore, or one of the BDMs out there. It'd be good to shed some light around why pandemics aren't covered within travel insurance and insurance in general, and that side of the business. There's a lot of insurance companies and agents as well copped a lot of flack over the past sort of 3 or 4 months as to why it's not covered and why this, and it comes back to simple economics, but once it's explained to the individual, they sort of get it. So maybe Michael Stein from Covermore might be good, or a representative from there to run through that. I think that'd be a invaluable one to the agents and everyone else who's out there might be there. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think, that's a question on a lot of people's lips, and probably moving forward as well, being able to really articulate that to a customer and explain the ins and outs of what it actually means, from the coverage perspective, because again, everything's about confidence. Everything's about being able to get people moving and get people traveling again. And travel insurance has always been there as a tool or as something that we've all needed and never wanted to use, but it does create that confidence to be able to explore different parts of the world. So a key factor, and definitely if we can get them on, we'd be happy to have a chat, and I'm sure they'd add a lot of value. So.
Yeah, I think you'll find that comes up as a barrier to sale for the agents as well, a lot, especially with the circumstances in the US at the moment, and parts of the world where it's still they're still struggling to get a handle on COVID and where that's at. So each it's a good light.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I said, mate, a huge amount of value today. I'm all, deep down, I'm thinking already. I want to get to Antarctica as soon as possible, and Quark sounds like a fantastic product that would be a great way to explore it. So, thanks for sharing, and thanks for sharing what's been going on in your world over the last few months. And as I said, we'll drop a ton of links down for agents as resources to head off and explore what's going on in the Quark world and get some updates. And as I said, mate, we'll catch up on the other side of all this, and we'll hopefully get a beer, or maybe go and do some burpees and some snatches and jerks or something.
100%. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks for having me, and again, thanks. It's a great initiative. Keeps us all engaged, and thanks for that.
Awesome. All right, bud. Talk soon.
No worries. Have a great day.
Bye.